We're back for Your Ears Only. I'm David Alpern.
I'm Eddie Robinson with this quote from the news. "I can't marry you. I don't know anything about myself." That was actress Judy Lewis to her fiancé before learning years later that she was not the adopted daughter of screen star Loretta Young, as she'd been told, but Young's secret love child with megastar Clark Gable. Lewis died last week at age 76. Now this.
I'm crazy, crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy, crazy for feeling so blue.
If that's what singer, pianist, raconteur, and provocateur Mark Nadler sounds like blue, you might well ask, what's he like a bullion? The answer, even more so, is on display this month in a show called Crazy 1961 at the Laurie Beechman Theater on 42nd Street in Manhattan. Like Willie Nelson's Crazy, all songs in the show are from 1961, and so is Nadler, now turned 50. So naturally, he sees it as a watershed year.
And as he makes memorably and entertainingly clear, it actually was. Young black and white freedom riders headed down south to fight segregation. Russian and American men and a monkey went up into space. The Soviet Union's Berlin Wall also went up to divide families and ideologies. And newly inaugurated President John Kennedy's Bay of Pigs invasion went down to ignominious defeat on Cuban shores. Popular culture, too, was changing. And to say more about it all, for your ears only, we're pleased to have Mark Nadler on the line again. Welcome back to our show.
I am so thrilled to be back on your show. Thanks for inviting me.
You make a telling point about the changing guard in entertainment. Old forms ending on Broadway, new music in the air.
Yeah, well, it really was, 1961, it turns out, really was right on the cusp of the golden age of musical theater and rock and roll. Just as the Music Man and Gypsy closed on Broadway in that year, Bob Dylan and the Beatles and Aretha Franklin were making their first recordings, their first public, not even recordings, their first public performances. And so it really rides that line, and it's a real line of demarcation, 1961.
Talk about some of the other cultural and commercial milestones of 1961, starting with the big movies.
Well, the movies that year were West Side Story, the movie of West Side Story, Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Guns of Navarone, 101 Dalmatians, the Parent Trap, which of course was a nightmare of a movie, but nonetheless it was one of the most popular that year. It was a time when there was just so much style still prevalent, and yet there was a restlessness that is really palpable when you look at it historically.
Another hit song of that year is Love Makes the World Go Round, but you contrast it with some major military developments of that year.
Well, I had to sing Love Makes the World Go Round. Carnival, the show Carnival, was one of the two biggest hits on Broadway that year. And so the biggest hit from Carnival is that song, Love Makes the World Go Round. I find that song just so horribly treacly. And so the only way I could make it work for myself was to use that song as a diving board to discuss all of the nuclear escalation that happened as love was making the world go round.
You also transformed Noel Coward's lyrical dream of love to be Sail Away into something close to a protest song. Talk more about that and the politics that we're developing.
Sail Away is a song that I have always loved, and it's an interesting song from Noel Coward because it's darker than most of what he wrote. And I sort of plumb the depths of the underlying darkness of that song and give it more edgy chord changes and turn it into a rock anthem and use it to explore the fact that 61 was the year that Kennedy sent the first soldiers to Vietnam. The lyric is, when the storm clouds are riding in the winter sky, sail away, sail away. I use it as the way that I might feel were I a young kid going off to Vietnam to see new places and experience new things that may or may not be pleasant. It's a pinnacle of the show in that I have just discussed the nuclear escalation between Russia and the United States, and that takes us to Kennedy sending all of these kids to Vietnam. And I use Sail Away for that. What I've tried to do in this show musically, every song that I sing, almost every song that I sing, is a show tune. And because 61 sits on the pinnacle, on the cusp of the golden age of musical theater and rock and roll, I have tried to transform each show tune into some version of either folk or rock, so that I have both of those things happening musically.
You also take I Believe in You, an anthem to ego from the show How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and make it a lullaby. Give us the personal context for that.
Well, I Believe in You, I Believe in You, comes from the musical How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, which had its opening night on Broadway was the night that I was born.
Wow.
So I took that song, I Believe in You, and I put it into the mouth of my father, singing it to the newborn me.
Because really in the show, the guy is singing to himself.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm sort of singing to myself too, aren't I?
That's true.
but I'm singing as my father to myself.
It's very touching.
Thank you.
You also found personal meaning in the French song Et Maintenant, badly mistranslated in the U.S. back then as What Now My Love. What did the original lyrics say and say to you?
Well, the original lyric is Et maintenant que vais-je faire de tout ce temps que sera ma vie, which translates into, and now what will I do with all this time that will be my life? And the song is the French lyric is really about searching for meaning in your life and trying to find a way to say goodbye. And I also attach it to my own personal journey as a human being. This is the year that I turned 50. And when you turn 50, you say goodbye to everything in your past. It's the next half of my life, essentially. And so it's that struggle of how do you say goodbye.
Mark Nadler's crazy 1961 show is at the Laurie Beechman Theater on 42nd Street in Manhattan, Thursday evening, December 8th, and with Sunday brunches on the 11th and 18th. And here he is again.
And I'm crazy for loving you.
Next, last words on a new dictionary for your ears only.